There you have it, a new era of built Ford tough.
The biggest story is the technology of materials. They've pulled some 700 pounds out of the weight of the F-150, much of it by having an aluminum body. Just about everything you see on the outside of the vehicle is now aluminum. That's a big change for the truck market. The other third or so comes out of high-strength steel being used in the ladder frame, which is tougher, lighter, but less sort of bulky as the steel goes. But there's still steel underneath this guy. And when you take 700 pounds out of your vehicle, you get to do some interesting things with how you power it, including this headline grabber, a 2.7-liter V6 EcoBoost. That means direct injection and turbocharging. This is seen as heresy by some in the truck world, where anything below a V8 is seen as just not enough to move a proper truck. But this is a small displacement V6 on top of just having 2 fewer cylinders than tradition. What we're seeing here is an engine that is yet to have its horsepower or economy specified. That'll come later as Ford gets closer to late 2014 release. But notice this guy's got standard auto start-stop technology. That's also interesting in a full-size pickup, although it's defeatable readily in all-wheel drive mode or at any time because truck demands can be so different than regular car. Ford Mustang wasn't unveiled here, but we got our first really good look at both body styles and that new engine choice that is raising a few eyebrows. Ford's done a real major redo on this car. It still looks like a Mustang, clearly, but it's less parodic, if you will. It doesn't have that kind of big haunches and squared off face look, although it's much wider in the back now in actual measurements compared to the previous vehicle, which gives it a more interesting stance and perhaps better road dynamics as well. Now, if the body of the new Mustang's different, that ain't nothing compared to this new engine. This is the new entrant, a 2.3-liter turbocharged inline 4. They haven't had a turbo 4 in a Mustang since a limited production SVO back in the mid-80s. This is big news. They haven't published horsepower numbers on it yet, but guess around 300, a little bit more than that. This is also an engine that's going to slot in the middle of the line. The base engine remains a 3.7 V6, and of course you still have the big boy, the 5-liter V8. That's iconic. They could never get rid of that. Porsche unveiled the Targa version of the new 911. It's the first Targa that articulates the entire rear glass window up and away to automatically stow the top. It starts at $100 grand and is all-wheel drive only. Truly a car for all seasons, if not all budgets. Chrysler's been struggling to really compete with the Accord, Camry, Fusion, Sonata, and Malibu. That may change now with the new Chrysler 200.
This new look is pretty indicative of Chrysler's new design language. They've got the textured grille that's integrating the headlamps with the floating Chrysler badge up front. It looks a little third-generation Subaru Impreza to me, but it's a good-looking car, and it's also very aerodynamically styled. Now, this 200F model is the sportier of the two models that were unveiled today, the other one being the 200C. This one's going to have a lot of black trim, sport tune suspension, and whatnot. There's some interesting things happening under the hood of these vehicles. The new 200 is available either as a 2.4-liter Tiger Shark inline 4 engine that's going to put out 184 horsepower, or with the Pentastar V6 that's going to output 295 horsepower. That's what you're going to want under the hood of the sport model. Now, both of those engines is going to be mated to a single option 9-speed automatic transmission. That's a lot of forward gears, and Chrysler says that's going to help you get really good fuel economy without having to sacrifice a lot of performance.
The new 7th generation Corvette got hotted up in a Z06 edition with a big new V8 that can assume several positions, cylinder-wise. This guy will do a minimum of 625 horsepower. It's probably going to be more than that when it hits the market, and some 635 foot-pounds of torque. Now here's where that prodigious power comes from. An all-new V8 they call the LT4. Next to its cousin, the LT1, no slouch either. They did a couple of things here I want to call out. First of all, dry sump design. There is no traditional oil pan down there, allowing it to have a shorter undercarriage. The oil is pumped in and out under pressure instead. And they've also got a very compact blower here, sitting almost entirely in the valley between the heads. Between those two dimensionally reducing feet, they've ended up with a very compact engine that they can allow to sit lower in the bay of the car, and that does good things for driving dynamics. But note that brawny motor's actually got some lean and green built into it. It's got cylinder deactivation to run in 3 different modes: 4-cylinder, 8-cylinder without the blower engaged, and 8-cylinder with the blower engaged. I'll be curious to see what kind of MPG numbers they can score out of something so overpowering. But perhaps the coolest tech actually came out just ahead of this car with something called the Performance Data Recorder. It grabs forward video and overlays it with a variety of selectable driving telemetry. It's the first time a car maker has built in what's traditionally been a specialty aftermarket toy. BMW's 1 Series moved up, well, really moved out, making room for the new 2 Series. Not quite as big and expensive as a 3, and this one's coupe only. From the sides and 3/4 views, here's what I see. It still has kind of that tragic truncated rump of the 1 Series, but they got rid of that sad mouth scallop on the side that made the 1 look like it was melting and bending in the middle. Overall, it's a car with a little more presence, but they can still bring it in at a price that's going to be in the zone of folks who would never spend $40 on a car. That's a hot zone because Mercedes' recent introduction of the CLA has been on fire, and that car starts at just a tick under 30 before destination. So all the Germans are rushing to do something cheaper. Now I'm in front of the M235i, which is the hot rod model of the 2 they'll have, the inline 6 that everyone knows and loves. But the car I think is going to be really interesting is that guy, the 228i with a 2-liter turbo 4 that puts out 240 horse, gets to 60 in 5.4 seconds, and still delivers 2335 mpg. Overall, to me, that's a great story. And again, a car that's going to be starting somewhere around $33,000. And what is that? The Toyota FT1 concept makes even the hottest of the past Supras look like a rental car.
This car is a signal, kind of a shot over the bow that Toyota has returned to dramatic styling, has returned to the kind of sports cars that they had with the Celica. In this car, we see a lot of aerodynamic features, such as these huge air intakes in front to feed the engine, these air vents on the side to add cooling to the brakes. We have this big spoiler in the back. It looks like it'll come up or down depending on the speed of the car. We even have a transparent cover over the engine. That's sort of a Ferrari kind of thing. We've got red valve covers, and you can even see the strut brace on the top here. Now in the cabin here, we have a head-up display on a little panel above the dashboard. This will show the driver's speed and engine speed and stuff like that. And Toyota has also put a couple of little displays at the top of the steering wheel. Here we get to see what mode the car is in, whether it's in sport mode or normal mode, and also what gear it's in. Of course, all of this is kind of for show. This is actually not even intended for production. You can drive it in the Gran Turismo 6 video game. They've got a version as downloadable content, so you can put it on the track, try it out. Apparently it handles really well in the game, but we won't be able to try that on the road.
Finally, if you've always thought of the Mercedes C-Class as just too starter, check out the baby S-Class that it's become with the new model. Here's the 2015 that is free to fly now that the CLA occupies their $30,000 price point. This guy's coming up scale. Notice they make you very obvious of that with that S-Class style front nose and very curvaceous styling, not the kind of pedestrian entry-level look the C-Class has often been cursed with. In the cabin, you're going to find a lot of niceties from really high-end finishes and accoutrement, which this car didn't always have, to a finger handwriting recognition pad you'll see on this car, kind of a tablet-shaped center screen in the main head unit. This car doesn't say mid or low scale anywhere. Engines will include a 235 horsepower, 2-liter turbo inline 4, or a 329 horsepower, 3-liter V6. They are going to make a wagon version of this, but because they hate me, they're not going to bring it to the US. This car comes out in September of 2014. Pricing will be locked in around then.